Welcome to This Week in Princeton Vikings Athletics here on ESPN Media, powered by Sidearm Sports and VikeNation.org. I'm Jason Griefer, and we're joined once again, and happy to be joined once again as well by Princeton AD Joe Roberts. Joe, it's been a few weeks since we've talked. Mother Nature has not exactly been friendly to any of us around here, but things never stop moving as far as athletics goes. It's been a pretty busy couple of weeks, is it not?
Yeah, Jason, it has been a busy couple of weeks, and I really thought last week time stood still, and it's been a long time since I've been able to say that. And part of that has to do with our district schedule. Last week, we had a Viking University on Wednesday, and on Thursday was additional at-home learning because we had the vaccination schedule here in the building, and so our faculty and staff had an opportunity to receive first round of vaccination. Then on Friday, it was an off day for the faculty and staff, and that led into Monday, President's Day. And then all of a sudden we had all that snow and weather. And so it just seemed like the last 10 days just kind of went forever. And which is a first, because here it is, it's already the end of February. Our regular seasons are done. We're in the postseason. We have a lot of winter sports that have already concluded. And, we started yesterday with spring. So, I mean, it's for as time standing still, it's really picked up and gone. So here we go.
And you've had a lot of additional challenges too, because you've been hosting a number of these postseason events. Basketball's always, postseason basketball is always being held there at Princeton. Of course, you hosted swim meets as well there. How much of an extra challenge has it been, given all the weather that we've had, on top of all the protocols, on top of trying to get staff vaccinated? And, oh, by the way, you're hosting postseason.
Yeah. Well, we are so fortunate here at Princeton to have the facilities, the location, the space, and our staff, our team. We love to host events, and it really opened up our facilities to the outside world to allow people to come in and see that. But it's a tremendous change, because your mindset is, while you're trying to focus on what goes on every day for our student athletes and our coaches here, this is that time of year where we also have to consider what we're doing from a tournament perspective, from a host site perspective. The changes, we were supposed to play host two games on Friday in Division II boys sectional. We had to take one of those games off because they had a team that was coming off of quarantine. So we ended up having to move Wilmington and Ross to last night. And then this week, it just doubles up. We have double headers all the way through Friday, and then Saturday with the district Division I district girls finals here at Princeton. And then that night, we're going to host a Division II district boys semifinal game, if you will. And then next week, we'll have Division I regional girls. And then the week after that, we're going to host Division I regional boys. So then on top of all of that, we've got water polo that starts, and they're going to have their invite the first week of March, and so on and so forth. So it goes right on down the line where we're just kind of, I have to say to LaToya, are we doing Princeton today, or are we doing, the outside world today, and where are we with things? So it just kind of works out hand in hand, but we love it, and it's just a great time of year.
You told us before we started recording here that spring break is coming at the end of March, and you're actually taking some vacation time for yourself. Given how much that you have coming up the next few weeks, how much you're looking forward to that?
Look forward to a vacation like this in a long time, but I truly am. I'm looking forward to that. Traditionally for me, I normally take the weekend of the state boys basketball tournament. My dad and I have been going to the state boys basketball tournament together since 1986, when he took me to my first one to watch Mansfield Senior High TY Tigers play against Portsmouth in the state championship game. But minus some times when during the NCAA basketball tournament, when I was at the University of Cincinnati, we were playing that same weekend. He and I have not missed a state basketball championship. And of course, this will probably be the first year that we'll miss going. But I traditionally take that time as when I use for my spring break, because we have events going on. But with the changes, I'm looking forward to that last week of March for sure.
And it'll be certainly a well-deserved break given everything that's gone on for the last 6 months. Going back to the fall season. So we'll look forward to find out how the vacation was for you after that concludes. So let's talk about your winter sports though, and let's start off in the pool. You obviously have had a busy time hosting postseason events at Princeton, but your teams have also been in the pool as well. Sectional and district events, those are behind us now, and the seasons come to an end there for the programs. So, given that said, now that the season is essentially wound down for your swim teams, how would you evaluate the progress of the programs, given everything that's gone on this season? Obviously, it's been a challenge for every team, the swim teams, no exception.
Yeah, I can't say it enough. To hats off to our coaching staff for what they've been able to do to keep the kids engaged in the water this year. And I think we talked about this the last time with senior swim night. The kids all were talking about looking forward to getting in for water polo season, and how much water polo plays an integral role for them. But now is also that time where, because of what we did with the 2 relays for the girls and the 2 relays for the boys, we actually are starting to see these student athletes come around and say, hey, what can I do in the off season now to get in the water in terms of club swim or what have you, in order to keep that momentum going for them? Because, by and large, though, that's a pretty young group on the boys side, and the girls are just going to continue to grow. I think we're going to end up 17, 20 kids coming back next year. And so if we can attract some more of those 8th graders coming in and draw some more, we'll get those numbers going. But, to watch the kids go at it has been just a tremendous, thing for us. And to be able to put them in the water day in and day out, and to be able to sustain what they had to go through from a protocol standpoint. And not only that, but the support from our parents. We were only allowed to have 36 spectators. When we hosted our invites and when we hosted the sectionals, we had no fans in attendance, but our parents step up and just are a tremendous support. I mean, I remember walking in toward the building here on the Friday of the girls sectional, and there's the parents standing outside looking in the windows, just wanting to get a peek real quick and just make sure things were going good. But they've been very supportive, and they've been able to adapt to what we've had to do this year. And so it's been a great foundation for us. And I think the one thing we can take away from all of our sports this fall and this winter, and then moving into the spring, if anything, the resilience has been shown from our student athletes. And if we are ever put in a situation like this with a pandemic again, I think we're all prepared to know what to do. So it's been great to watch.
Yeah, it's had a good foundational year, and like you said, especially if you can get some of those numbers coming into the next few years, and obviously being able to stay at home to swim, for a large part of the season, that can really pay off going forward. Let's move on. Let's talk about your academic quiz team, and they've had a rough go of it, to say the least. But it's also this is an insanely good GMC as far as AQT goes, and so it just seems like every single night you're dealing with somebody that has a chance to contend on the grand scale down the road. They've got a couple of weeks left in the regular season before the postseason there. What's been the focus here as the season's been winding down?
I think a lot of it has to do with retention and working on that speed, that quiz. We're going to have Lakota West in tonight. That's been a reschedule. And then we'll head to Middletown on Friday, and then, wrap it up with the regular season with Oak Hills on March the 3rd. And then we'll head to, I was originally slated for Hamilton, and now I believe it's at Fairfield now for the GMC Conference Championships on that Saturday, March the 6th. And, the students, they spend a lot of time reading, so they understand the nature of the game. And so I think a lot of it has to do with that quick recall, if you will, and getting that plunger down quickly enough to be able to buzz in, if you will. But I really enjoy, like I said a couple of weeks ago, being able to watch the kids and just the knowledge that they have in certain areas. And each one of those students, they have a different background in terms of, I'm really strong in English, or I'm really strong in mathematics. And I think that plays a big part of it as well, because they all can kind of divide and conquer where they need to be and put themselves in the right situation to move forward.
Let's switch on to the bowling lanes and bowling teams in the postseason as well. Let's start off with the boys, and we can't not talk about Cody Carlson. He's through to the districts after bowling a 606 series in the sectional, so he moves through. Obviously, we've all seen the accolades for Cody. He's been first team all conference the first 3 years at Princeton. He's first team all conference assuredly this year. Leading scorer in the GMC last year, finished second this year. Obviously, he's one of the best to ever come through Princeton High School. his career is winding down now. He's at the tail end of his senior season here. If we don't get to talk about him again here on the podcast, what is maybe one thing or two fans should know about Cody Carlson?
He's just a great kid. I mean, he flat is, and he has done a lot in the sport of bowling because he loves to bowl. I'm not sure that he's one of those individuals that's going to just, spend hour upon hour upon hour to work on the game. But I think he has worked his way through, and he loves being out there on the lane. And our younger kids, he's been a great example for them, both the boys and the girls. And he has shown them what you need to do to advance your way through and the time you need to give in order to be successful in that sport. And he will walk away as probably one of the founders of our bowling program, which if we can get some student athletes to buy in to that type of preparation, I mean, he spent a lot of time in summer leagues or in off-season leagues. I'm sure he spent a lot of time up there on a Saturday or Sunday bowling and honing that craft. And he has been a tremendous person. And he was like that in golf too. He could hit it a country mile. Sometimes he knew where it was going. Sometimes he didn't, but that's okay because he has the natural ability for these life sports. I mean, bowling you can do for the rest of his life. Golf, he can play forever. So, he's just a great young man to be around and just kind of absorb that energy from.
It was a lot of fun when we covered the bowling match against Lakota East. I think it was a couple of weeks ago on a WatchHSports.tv. A lot of fun to see both the boys and the girls and the way they approach things. We had our eye on Cody Carlson as well and saw his demeanor and the way he approached the lane and the adjustments he made as his games went on, and you could see that rub off on the boys as well. The other boys, trying to make those in-game adjustments, if you will. And then we look on the girls' side of things, and this is a very young team you had this year in a very, very loaded GMC. This was a very top-heavy GMC on the girls' bowling side. But you still had a team out there that was having a lot of fun and enjoying themselves and enjoying not only the game but the competition as well. How do you think the girls specifically handled the workload of trying to get as many matches in as possible before the postseason? And did any one particular young lady maybe stand out to you as things went along?
Well, there were certainly low points for the girl. I mean, when they went against, when they saw Coleraine for the first time, and they just got, knocking pen down after pen down, you could watch this young team just be like, what are we doing here? This is not where we're supposed to be. But again, they just kind of kept on going. And once we were able to get Renee back and get us to 5 girls, I think the turn of the momentum of being able to say, hey, it's going to be all right. And then we go to the GMC Invitational, which, we need to push to make that more of a GMC actual event. And they finished dead last. And they just got, they got put in their place, if you will. And they realized they're like, this is not going to, how we want to represent ourselves and how we want to represent Princeton. It was just a bad day. They go back out and they finished 15th out of 20 as a team. All of those girls improved their scores. They had a lot of momentum. So then they all left sectionals like, we're going to be okay. And as we told them, if you guys will do this, if you guys will stick this out and understand that this is an enjoyable sport and you can really make some progress in this for the next 4 years, you're going to see yourself move up and up and up. We may never come to the level of a Coleraine or a Fairfield in terms of that high level, high scoring, intense bowling, but I think we're going to be really, really close to that. And from an individual standpoint, I hats off to all the girls. And I think if they can realize what they did this year is just the beginning, and they just need to know that they can't have the same results next year as they had this year, because that means they didn't grow. So if they understand that portion of it, we're going to be okay. And I just watched how the girls all came together. 3 of them came from the volleyball team, and then the other 2 were, not. And now all of a sudden you hear them all talking, and they're saying, hey, what are you doing this spring? You want to try lacrosse? Do you want to try track and field? Do you want to, do summer bowling or what have you? And so now there's some relationships that have been formed and built out of something where they didn't even know one another. So it's been a great thing to watch.
And it's just as impressive as well. Again, given the youth and the fact that you don't have the depth to see them buy in, especially after things don't go well, as you said, the GMC invite and earlier in the season, it could have been very easily for these younger kids to just say, "I'm done. I'm not worried about this anymore. This isn't going to get any better," and they stuck with it. So I think that bodes well for the future, especially if you're able to add a few more going into next season. So kudos to them for sticking with it, despite how tough the GMC is this season. Let's move on. Let's hit the wrestling mats. And wrestling team has had as big of a challenge as anybody to try and get matches in, mostly duels. Some teams have been able to have a try or a quad, but now the postseason's here. And the last time we talked, it was just trying to get a hold of somebody saying, hey, can you come in and have a match? Hey, do you want to have a duel? Now they're in the postseason. How strange of a year has this been for the wrestling team?
I think this probably is for Princeton. This has probably been the toughest year they've ever had to go through with wrestling. I can't relate to prior to the last 2 years in terms of numbers and participation, but it's as down as it's been. But yet you take those 7 that we have right now, and they, just like that girls bowling team, they have stuck this out, and they committed to this sport, and they committed to what Coach Powell's doing, and they have made something out of what I would have said was an impossible task 4 months ago. Because I would have said in November, if you would have asked me in November 1st, as we started to look into the winter season, will we wrestle? I would have told you no, we're not going to wrestle. It's not feasible with the protocols. It's not feasible given the pandemic that we were in at that time. And we should have just said, let's move it forward. However, hats off to the leadership of the OHSAA, hats off to the leadership of our conference, hats off to the support of our administration here, so that we could get kids on the mat and we could put them in a situation where they could be successful. And it's all about getting that time in for them. And so they'll roll into sectionals this coming weekend at Lakota East. And I think Coach Powell's going to take 2 men over, and they're going to roll over there, and they're going to get some really good mat time. And we probably could get a young man out if things fall correctly in the seating procedures as we get into this week. But by and large, he had no seniors on that team. We believe that we're on the back end of this pandemic. I believe that the student athletes that did not come out this year are going to come back. And I think we're going to see a much different, a little bit more stronger veteran wrestling program next year than we saw this year, because this year they were essentially rookies in terms of there wasn't a senior leader there that had been there and done that, if you will. So I'm really proud every night from 6 to 8:30, looking down there in the wrestling room, the lights are on and the kids are on the mat, and Coach Powell's instructing them and getting them time. So it's been really, it's been great to see. I think they've done a really good job at the 7th and 8th grade level to try to keep kids involved and engaged. So we'll move those 8th graders in and just try to continue to build that building block.
How much of a different kind of evaluation will you have of the wrestling program this season, given the fact that, as you said, you had a number of kids who may have been on the team this year, but because of the pandemic decided, no, I'm taking this year off. And then in season, you're struggling to find matches left and right. And as you said, only two wrestlers are going to go to the sectionals. How different is your evaluation going to be of the program and going into the off season?
Yeah, it's we're not measuring it on the success of wins and losses. We're measuring it on the success of being able to develop and grow the program. So we're going to use this as what do we need to do to get ourselves progressively better in terms of numbers, in terms of participation, in terms of exposure for those kids and looking into next year. What are we going to do? We're really going to motivate. What are we going to do in the off season? Yeah. I really hope that we can encourage our student athletes to join a spring sport or to start concentrating on something in the fall. But I also think they need to be brought back in and spend some time with what they're permitted to do in open mats, in weight training, in Greco freestyle, or whatever that case may be, whatever situation we need to do to put our kids to get them prepared for next year, we need to do that. So that's going to be our building block for this offseason through the evaluation period.
Let's move on to the hardwood, and both your basketball teams still alive in the postseason. That's a good thing. Of course, boys coming off of a shutdown for the last 2 weeks of the regular season, and really coming off of a tough loss at the last time they played in the regular season to Lakota East. We had that game; they were up early, and then things just kind of fell away from there. And Lakota East won that one pretty handily. But now we get into the postseason play. You've got Hamilton coming up to take them on tonight. You look at the brackets. You might have Elder waiting for you on Friday, assuming you can take care of Big Blue tonight. Got to focus on that, though. But this has been, like the wrestling, a very odd season for boys basketball. You have this we don't know when the season's going to start. You get a couple of games in, and then you shut down the beginning of the January, then come back, get going, have to cram a bunch of games in for a month. Then we shut down again. Now you've got to get prepared for the postseason and try and make a run in the postseason. How would you say Coach Wyatt and the players have handled all of the starts and stops and all the adversity they've had to go through?
Well, I don't know. I'd love to see the data if there's been another basketball team, and I'm sure there has, that's gone through 3 quarantines this season. I'm sure there has in the state, but I think you touched on it just a second ago, Jason. It's about the momentum. And, I'll put Bowen Hardman out there in the forefront. Playing basketball is, a lot of it has to do with, you got to be able to break a sweat. You got to be able to get into a rhythm. You got to be able to move. And when you are starting and stopping constantly, that kind of changes how you play. And so then you take somebody who has a shooter like Bowen, or an attacker like Jesse Olverson, or a playmaker like Greg Johnson, and they get their groove going, and they're moving, and they're sweating, and they're playing, and there's a rhythm, and they play Tuesday, and then they play Friday, and then they play Saturday, and then all of a sudden it's just a complete stop. You're going to come back out there, and you're gonna be cold, and you're gonna, it doesn't matter that you've done Zoom workouts every single day and individual film sessions and all of those things are extremely important. And hats off to Coach Wyatt and our coaching staff, because we've had to learn to live in this new world, this Zoom format, this electronic workout. So they've done those things to keep the kids fresh and keep them on their mental sharp edge. But when you're not out there every day and going against one another or going against another team, that affects you a little bit. We saw a little bit of that coming back out with our game against Edgewood. I didn't get there until after halftime. We were hosting games here, but you could see they were a little sluggish. But where they weren't sluggish is that effort, because they did not stop. They wanted to keep going, and they wanted to press, and they wanted to push, and on the defensive side. So that side of it, you're going to see some great things. Now we're going to come up here tonight, and we're going to face Hamilton, who we didn't see in the regular season, who have some size about them. They certainly came up short in some games that they did not come up short in this year. But they won some games that some people would say they probably shouldn't have won, like the Lakota East situation. But be that as it may, I think Coach Wyatt, he posted on social media yesterday on the basketball Twitter page a stat comparison. And I just happened to look at it, and we're scoring a few more points than they are, but we're turning the ball over a couple more times than they have. They certainly have us in the rebounding advantage right now. If you've got a 7-footer who will go inside, then obviously that's going to be a tough one to out rebound. But be that as it may, it's a pretty evenly matched game from a statistics standpoint tonight. Where I believe we're going to see a difference is our kids are mentally tough and ready to go and want to be out there, because the flip to this, where we've been down for as long as we have, a lot of people have played, 18, 19, 20 games. And so it's been a long year for them on top of everything they've gone through. So we have a little bit more freshness, I think, tonight. And I hope that our kids come out and respond to that.
hopefully they come out with that energy. And as you said, also harness that energy and don't be reckless and take care of the basketball because, as you said, a few more turnovers than they would have liked, I'm sure. Let's move over to the girls' side of things as we're winding down the show here today. They're into the district final this coming Saturday. They're going to take on the top seed, Huber Heights Wayne. Can't play it at Princeton, though. The district final was originally slated to be at Princeton High School, but you can't play on your home floor in the district, so it's going to be moved. So we'll see where it gets moved to. But this has been kind of an up and down second half of the year. You got off to that 8-1 start, and then we started alternating wins and losses seemingly for weeks. Started to get things turned around now here in the postseason and start to get back to where you're wanting to be. But in particular, these last few weeks, we've seen the continued solid play of Madison Rochelle and the emergence of Dee Dee Carter-Hartley really coming in, having to take on a really important role in the team this year in just her sophomore campaign. And I think during the second half, she's really come on to be a pretty good looking prospect as far as the future goes there. No matter how far the team goes here, because we may not talk about them again here on the podcast, what can you tell us about the play of those two in particular? And with Madison, given that her career is winding down, what is her legacy going to be?
She's been a leader. She's been someone that our girls have looked up to and have worked to emulate. Last night, I don't if you get a chance to watch it. Last night, she made what I call a defensive free safety catch and stole a basketball about midcourt, and she came straight down on the floor. And I'm like, we need to put her out on the football field because she bounced right up. She's tough as nails. It was a big time steal for the girls. But, watching her progress these last 2 years, she's very selfless. And she knows when she needs to score and she knows when she doesn't. And I think she's taken someone like Dee Dee, who is a sophomore, who has a ton of talent. And she has great hands and great feet. I think a lot, coming off of what she does on the soccer field, that certainly helps her footwork. But it's been a great team to watch because if you look at them, our girls are all pretty much the same size. We don't have anyone that's overpowering than the other, and so it's like a very balanced team. And so you take what we've done all year, and we certainly have gone through some lows, like you said, where we had some losses and people are scratching their heads and second guessing one another and wondering if we're going to get out of this. And then all of a sudden they just pick it back up, and Madison just kind of said, hey, we just got to go play basketball. Let's just move forward. And then we were able to bring Soleil back in, coming off of her injuries. And what has been able to happen is we're not putting all the burden on Soleil to score, to carry us through, and so now Soleil's been able to say, hey, listen, let's control the basketball, let's pass the basketball, let's get us into an offensive rotation and get things moving, and then you're going to have your opportunities to do what you need to do because we know the type of player she is for us. So it's really neat to see. And I have not had a chance to see Huber Heights Wayne this year. Obviously, we know what they're made of and what they can do, but I think Saturday's going to be a great match. I do, and I think if our girls can come out much like we did these last two sectional games, where we just get on them real quick, I think we can kind of close them out early and just kind of stay on that point. So looking forward to Saturday. Don't know where we're going to play yet. I wish we were hosting it like we're hosting all the other Division I district final games, but I certainly understand about the home floor side of it. So wherever the district board needs us to play that game, we're going to get on the bus and go.
Lastly, here on the episode of the podcast today, let's say the winter sports are winding down, as you mentioned, and as we've talked about, some of the winter sports have already concluded this season. Everybody's in the other ones that are going are in the postseason now. We're starting to look forward toward the spring season, and we will continue the podcast as we go into the spring. We talked about water polo getting going here, and the other spring sports right on the verge of getting going as well. As you take stock of what's ahead for you in the spring, is there one thing in particular you're most looking forward to with this spring season?
Playing it. Because if you remember, it'll be a year that we had to say we weren't going to be able to have spring sports. And so last year I didn't get a chance to be a part of anything with Vike Nation in terms of spring sports, but I'm tremendously looking forward to being over there during our track meets at the stadium at Jake Sweeney Automotive Stadium. and watching our kids run. I cannot wait to see what our boys tennis team does on the tennis courts. Our unbelievable facilities for baseball, being able to watch 2 baseball games at the same time, if you will, and then walk right down the hill and right there in a beautiful little settings, our softball facility, and watch them. Having lacrosse go on at the same time, watching our boys and girls lacrosse programs, and then coming back in here to the arena and watching boys volleyball. I think it's going to be exciting. At Lexington, we didn't have boys volleyball. We had a little push for it a couple of years in a row, but we never got it off the ground. So I'm really looking forward to watching boys volleyball this year. Just watching the different sports, and then watching everything we do at the 7th and 8th grade level as well. So it's just going to be great to have the kids outside and have a season.
And we'll be certainly looking forward to talking about it here on the podcast once we get to the spring season. But we're out of time on this episode here today, talking about winter sports, and we're certainly keeping an eye on the teams and individuals that are still alive in the postseason. Joe Roberts, certainly appreciate the time here today.
Thanks, Jason. You guys have a great day.
Absolutely. That is Joe Roberts, Princeton High School Athletic Director, joining us here in VikeNation.org and this week in Princeton Vikings Athletics here on ESP Media, powered by Sidearm Sports.